What's really going on behind the scenes ahead of BTS' big tour of the United States? Why did Jungkook, who had always been known to hold back his emotions, suddenly speak up in such a different way? And why did Taehyung's reaction that night make everyone, even the most powerful army, unable to hold back tears? A few days before the US tour began, the atmosphere around Jungkook felt strange. There was something different in the way he smiled, in the way he looked at the camera, as if there was a huge burden that he had kept alone. Many thought he was just tired. But the reality is much deeper than that. During a brief session with fans, Jungkook finally said something that made the room suddenly quiet. The voice is quiet, but clear. He admitted that this tour is not just an ordinary trip. There was a jumble of feelings he felt, between excitement, pressure, and longing that was hard to explain. I want you guys to know, I really think about this every night. That simple sentence sounded familiar, but from Jungkook's eyes, everyone knew. It wasn't just words. ARMY began to realize that this was an honest confession that had been awaited. Jungkook is not speaking as a strong idol. He speaks as a human being, and that's what makes the moment feel so real. But what was most surprising wasn't just Jungkook's words. As the camera switches to Taehyung, his expression changes drastically. At first, he was silent, staring at Jungkook without saying anything. But a few seconds later, his eyes began to glaze over. Taehyung, who is usually always calm and full of smiles, suddenly lowered his head. His hands clasped tightly, as if trying to hold on to something that could no longer be contained. And then, the tears fell. There is no dramatization, no music. It was just a quiet moment that was so emotional that it left everyone watching speechless. The army that was present immediately burst into tears. Even the staff behind the stage looked away. It was as if Taehyung knew something deeper than just touring. It was as if Jungkook's words touched something that only the two of them understood. Some fans began to speculate. Was it about the great pressure they were facing? Is Jungkook saving something ahead of departure? Or is this a sign that this tour carries a much heavier emotional meaning than it seems? What is clear, that moment is not an ordinary moment. It was the moment when Jungkook finally opened his heart, and Taehyung couldn't help but feel the emotion that he might have been hiding. And now one big question hangs over everyone's mind. And precisely after that moment passed, the atmosphere became even more mysterious. Jungkook did not immediately continue the conversation. He was silent for quite a long time, as if trying to swallow the emotions that rose to the surface. His eyes looked down, then back towards Taehyung. There was something unspoken, something that felt too heavy to say in front of everyone. Taehyung was still trying to smile, but the tears on his face said otherwise. A few seconds later, Jungkook approached, his voice almost like a whisper. "We've come this far." That sentence struck the heart of anyone who heard it, because for ARMY, those words aren't just about touring. It sounded like a reminder of BTS' long journey, of all the wounds, sacrifices, and stresses they've endured together over the years. And when Jungkook said that, Taehyung finally lifted his face. It nodded slowly, as if he wanted to say, "I know." It was as if he wanted to say that he also felt the same way. It's just that all this time he chose to be silent. The fans in attendance began to realize that this was no ordinary emotional moment. There are different energies. There is a sense of emotion that is too deep to be described in simple words. Even after the show was over, the short clip instantly spread across social media. ARMY from different countries began to wonder. Why does Jungkook sound like he's saying goodbye? Why is Taehyung crying as if he knows something that the public doesn't know? And why does it feel like the beginning of a new chapter of uncertainty? Speculation is also emerging. Some say Jungkook is feeling overwhelmed because a big tour in America always brings tremendous pressure. There are also those who believe that the members are preparing for something much bigger than just a concert. But one thing is for sure, the moment shows a side of BTS that is rarely seen. BTS is not perfect choreography. It's not BTS who always smiles on stage, but BTS as human beings, with a fragile heart, with fear, with longing, and with great love for ARMY. Taehyung is then seen wiping away his tears, trying to calm down. But before he really recovers, Jungkook does something that leaves everyone shocked again. He held Taehyung's hand. Not for the camera, not for dramatization, but like a brother would say, let's face it together. And at that moment, the army was completely destroyed, and what makes everyone even more nervous is what happens after a few hours after that emotional moment. Jungkook did not immediately activate as usual. No casual posts, no lighthearted jokes. It was the silence that felt so heavy. It was as if he was deliberately making room for everyone to digest what had just happened. The army began to feel that something was unfinished. There is something that has not been said. Because when a Jungkook finally speaks in such a sincere tone, and Taehyung comes to tears in front of everyone, it's not just a momentary emotion. It felt like a message, like a sign. And more fans are paying attention to small details that were previously missed. Jungkook's gaze was longer than usual. The way Taehyung clasped his own arm was like holding back a shudder, and the expressions of the other members who seemed to be beaten, even though they tried to smile, as if everyone in the room knew this tour will be different. Some army even said that the moment reminded them of the early days of BTS, when everything was still full of uncertainty. Every step was hard, but they walked together. But this time, the burden was much greater. It's not just about the concert. It's about time. It's about the long journey they've been on, and maybe about something that will change after this tour is over. Taehyung himself, after the tears fell, only said one short sentence that immediately made the army even more devastated. I'm just proud of you. Nothing more, but precisely because it is simple, it feels so piercing, because such pride is usually born from a struggle that not everyone sees, and Jungkook, who heard it, immediately let out a long sigh, like someone who finally felt understood. He smiled a little, but his eyes were red. Then he said quietly, I'm afraid to disappoint you. Boom, the sentence is like lightning. Soldiers all over the world immediately felt their chest tightness. Jungkook, scared. Jungkook, who always looks perfect. Jungkook, who has always been a symbol of strength and spirit. It turns out that all this time kept the fear alone. And that's where Taehyung comes back, unable to contain his emotions. He turned his face, covered his mouth with his hands, trying to hold back the cry that came again. That moment made everyone aware. BTS is not a robot. They're not just superstars. They're 7 human beings who carry the hopes of millions, while still trying to keep their own hearts from collapsing. And this US tour, it's not just about the big stage. It's about proving that they can still hold on, can still walk, despite the growing pressure. Now the army can only ask in silence.